we're creators, and we're going to save the arts from these robots. I think people are a lot more receptive, and especially now that we see, Ridley Scott used AI for the Rhino in Gladiator 2. No one's going to blacklist him or give him a death threat. To keep creating work, copyright, founding fathers said in the Constitution, this is to incentivize people to continue creating.
Welcome back to the 8 Growth Ventures podcast. Today we're excited to have Russell Palmer, CEO and founder of CyberFilm AI. CyberFilm is using generative AI to help filmmakers create Hollywood quality movies on an indie budget. Russell's journey from Microsoft to Silicon Valley and now to disrupting the film industry is truly inspiring. In this episode, we'll talk about how AI changing filmmaking, the mission behind CyberFilm, and what's next for the future of storytelling. Russell, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm a fan of the show, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Russell, like the way we kind of do the podcast for most of our listeners that are the first time tuning in is we kind of go through a chronological order of your past, present, and then the future. And what I would love to get started with is a little bit of your kind of past and what's been sort of the foundation and influence of you going to where you are today and how you see the world. So let's take a little bit step back. You worked at Microsoft for a little while, right? So
Yeah.
what year was this roughly around? What time? So
Oh,
people
right
can.
after college, so about 2008, I moved from Toronto, where I'm from, to Seattle, and I worked for about 8 years at Microsoft in the Office division as a sort of a user experience program manager. And one of the things I really excelled at was using big data was very hot at the time. So using big data in addition to usability studies to see what are people clicking on, what features are not used, how can we improve it based on Microsoft's strategy. And this was also when this was before AI was officially granted to the term. It was just starting to be called machine learning and deep learning. So I really got into that. Microsoft Research was doing some amazing work there. We were building these magic features in Excel, which would you type one thing and it would figure out what you want and apply it to your entire
Oh,
Excel
you built that? I love that
spreadsheet.
feature, by the way.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
favorite.
yeah. So it was great. It was also a pleasure to be there because Microsoft Office, some people don't know, is likely where the PM profession was invented. So when I first joined, I was trying to read as much as possible, learn as much as possible in my first job, and I found a memo from someone, I think back in the 80s, which basically said, we've got business on one side, the engineers on one side. They don't like talking to each other, and we're building things that end up not being used. And the customer says, well, this is nice, but it's not what I wanted. So there was a letter to Bill Gates directly, which said, I think we need to create a new role to manage the program, and they called it the program manager. Now it's called a product manager, but yeah. So I sort of learned my trait at the place it was invented, and it was great. I just learned so much being there.
Amazing. What do you think was one of the biggest, besides learning the profession and the craft that you become great at,
Yeah.
what would you say was one of the biggest early lessons on that has still held true after so many years later for you?
Yeah, the big one is, I mean, at Microsoft, PM is an entry level position. They prefer computer scientists, engineers. That's my background. Um, but um, so, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. But yeah. The idea is you just came out of college. You're not managing anyone yet, but here's your team of three developers and two testers and a designer. So what they say is you need to lead through sort of inspiration and positivity. And by being smart and having the right ideas, you cannot lead by saying, hey, I manage you, developer X. Do this no matter what I say, or else I'll, fire you or you won't get a promotion. They are managed by a dev manager. So it's really up to you to convince these developers, sometimes who are much older and more experienced than you, that you have the right ideas and you convince them to build it. If they don't want to build it, they can tell their dev manager, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, get me a new PM. And so you need to lead not by authority, by just the quality of your work. And I think even now as a CEO, I still try to do that. I've had some bad managers in my life who do lead by, do what I say no matter what, even though I think it's wrong, and don't speak up in the meeting. One of Google's surveys of their best performing teams said emotional security is one of the most important factors. People need to be able to speak up to authority. And so now as a CEO, I make sure I never say, do this because I'm in charge. It's, well, tell me your concerns and let me see if I can convince you or we can compromise. So I think
Or the
that's
why, right? Like the why
the
of what
why.
you're
Yeah,
working on, the vision,
exactly.
the what
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
impact it's going to make, and the reason behind it. Eh,
Exactly. No
Perfect.
developer wants to work on something they're not convinced why it's going to, be a big hit and get them a promotion. And people want to see impact. No one wants to spend a year building a feature and then find out, as I said, we were measuring data, find out no one uses it. So the why, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. And then you transition from Microsoft to a Samsung subsidiary, Viv Labs. Can you tell us a little
Yeah,
bit about that? And here you started working on Bixby, which is probably the first generation of AI agents. Is that
absolutely.
is that a fair way of explaining it, or can you
Abs
talk a
abs
little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's really exciting to sort of be at that early stage. And in fact, the founders of Viv Labs invented Siri. So they were at SRI, Samsung Research Institute. I think Siri, that's kind of what the name comes from, and sold it to Apple. Steve Jobs apparently called them, once it launched in the App Store, 30 nights in a row until
Wow.
until the founders would come over for dinner, have some wine by the fire. And it's funny, they had so many Steve Jobs stories, but they said, we didn't want to sell. That's why we weren't picking up his call. But within 30 seconds of sitting down with him, like not only were we going to sell the company, we would follow this man, into do whatever he says. The Steve
Talk about
Jobs,
leading by vision, right?
yeah,
And
or some call it like the Steve Jobs reality distortion field. Like he just convinces you very quickly and you believe it 100%. So, yeah, I mean, I started at Microsoft. It was luckily it was the first job I applied for, and I got it, and I wanted to move to the U.S. So I was in Seattle, but I was there. Yeah, once you're there, I think 5 or 6 years. You transition from the now controversial H-1B visa to I got my green card so I could move and switch jobs. And yeah, I thought I'd learned enough at Microsoft and contributed. Office productivity software was not, my passion. And after working on machine learning and now seeing AI coming to fruition, I wanted to join an AI company. So yeah, moved down to San Jose, joined these Siri founders who had left Apple to start what they really wanted, which was Apple mixed with the App Store, which is meaning to say they didn't think Apple was adding features enough to Siri. If you remember, it was good at first and then kind of slowed down. Um, they wanted anyone to be able to, so Spotify could integrate, hey, here's a capsule, we called them. So you could just say, play me the best song from the 80s and it'll do it, or play me a song I'd like based on my playlist, it'll do it. And, I would drive up to Uber and say, here's our new platform. Do you want to build on it? This will be on. There was an acquisition by Samsung. So this will be this Siri for Samsung called Bixby. And there was a button on it you could press and say, in the morning, call my Uber, and it's smart enough to know, okay, you're at home based on the time, you're obviously going to work. You usually pick this type of Uber X car, let's do it. So yeah, I think it was one of the first AI agents that were extensible. And so learned a lot about natural language processing and training models, but also building a feature that would scale. So Samsung is on and multi-language. So Samsung, iPhone's most popular in the US, but Android phones are everywhere. else in the world. And so they put Bixby on their new smart speaker, sort of the Amazon Alexa competitor. They had a smart refrigerator you could talk to. They had a smart TV, so all Bixby was everywhere. And so it was
How adopted is Bixby? Like when you at that time, did it get quickly adopted,
It
or was it
it
one of
got, yeah, immediately adopted because people on their Samsung devices, they didn't want to switch, but they wanted something like Siri. It was so hot at the time, and Alexa. And so as soon as it came out, we went from zero to one in terms of, a startup with an idea to an acquisition launching on millions of devices worldwide. And so, yeah, we had millions, tens of millions of users almost from the first week. And
amazing?
so that was great. And the best part was I worked with Adam Chire, who is the opposite of the manager I mentioned before. The nicest guy in the world, leads with positivity. Everyone loves him. And he had just his track record, his first startup sold to Apple, his second sold to Samsung, his third that he just worked on after sold to Airbnb. I mean, the guy is just
Amazing.
amazing. So I sort of learned like, I was there when there was, five people in a group of 50 and then more. So I saw if you have the right people, the right team, the right idea, you don't give up on yourself and you're sort of, you have a good product, anyone can build a startup. And so that's what really planted the seed in my head. Okay, I not only want to work on AI, uh, I want to do a startup now that I'm in Silicon Valley.
How old are you at this point in the
I
journey?
just turned Well, I just turned 40, so yeah, 15 plus year career so far.
Amazing.
Mhm.
And then, so what transition at this point? You had an incredible experience, obviously. You initially worked at Microsoft, where PM was invented, and you
Yeah,
kind of got a great experience there, and then you transitioned to this incredible opportunity at Viv Labs
yeah,
and releasing a mass product and really getting, so here you are in your career. What
yeah,
changed for you? When did you, at the initial thoughts of CyberFilm AI, start coming to fruition? And
yeah,
when did you say, enough is enough, time for me to really go after this and start building this?
yeah. And I mean, I love Canada. I'm a proud Canadian. Just got my dual citizenship proudly. But it- I was under the impression this was before the pandemic, and it was easier to work remote. And so I thought I had to be in Silicon Valley to meet the right people. I mean, step one as a co-founder, maybe even before you have an idea. And so I was trying to just be around people. I actually, after few years at Viv Labs, got recruited to JP Morgan. Had just opened up a new AI lab, built a huge new campus on Sanford Research Park, and the team
Man,
was
you've been at
incredible.
the skunk works of all the major companies, huh?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Well, and it's interesting too, biggest software company in the world, Microsoft, biggest hardware company in the world, Samsung, and now biggest, oldest bank in
Yeah.
America. And so and it's for inspirational CEOs, Bill Gates, Jamie Dimon, like people I'm learning from are just incredible. I wasn't quite prepared yet, and I hadn't met the right people. And so this team, I just couldn't turn it down. It was recruiting. The first five people were from Google, the person who added AI to improve Google Translate and Google Maps. A couple of years ago, it got order of magnitude better, and that was with AI. And he led that team. And then they recruited the best people from Amazon, from Meta, Microsoft. And so I just thought this all-star team was great. Not only could I learn some new things, we were building.
I love how humble you are. You're like, I was surrounded by these all-star team. I don't know why I was in the room, but I was surrounded by them.
Yeah, well, it's funny. They called me the Microsoft guy. It's almost like they're collecting one from
They're
each
like, I guess we
company.
need the Microsoft guy in this team.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but it's also because it was so new, maybe that I was humble because Amazon Web Services, we decided to build the bank's platform on top of it. There was a big deal between JP Morgan and AWS, one of these billion-dollar 10-year deals. And it was a chance to learn, okay, how do we build things from scratch on AWS? Like literally set up a data bucket and make sure, JP Morgan's big thing was our data has been for 200 years on these Cobalt servers because we just don't want to change them and no one's hacked them yet. So they work, but they realize it's time to move into the cloud. But they're
Right.
like, oh God, if there was a recent Amazon hack where a disgruntled employee let out some private customer data into the world. And so our job was to make sure that would never happen, single tenant, top encryption. But yeah, they ended up uploading a lot of their data to Amazon and then using services like SageMaker and Spark to train on it, do data analysis. And so we were sort of a hub and spoke team, like we were in the middle with the five line of business divisions around us. And so they'd come and say, um, we want to be more accurate in our loan approvals, for example. Help us build something that would, allow our employees to say, all of these are 95% sure these people are going to pay it back. Here's the 100 you need to be more focused on. And so, yeah, again, it's not about, people hated when they heard that the healthcare company recently had turned on AI to just turn down people's um, um, funding, reimbursements, and obviously there's a lot of anger about that. So they wanted to have something where just make our employees more effective and more faster and more accurate.
Right.
Um, and so there were a few other projects that were kind of secret, so I can't name. But yeah, you can imagine, they tried to build an AI that would predict the stock market. Turns out it doesn't really work because just things happen, things change, and that previous data just can't always account for. But yeah, they had a ton of projects. Omni AI, it was called, and it won an award from C100 magazine as the most innovative tech project of the year. But COVID hit, and so I was working from home. And everybody's saying, "Oh, it's sort of the great resignation," where people are saying, "Is this the thing I want to do for the rest of my life, or maybe now is time for a change?" And I just realized after a couple of years, finance is not my thing. And so, to get back to your original question, filmmaking is a huge
Yep.
passion of mine. During the pandemic, I just had a lot of downtime. Stanford continuing studies put all these courses online from their best professors. AI product management, how to build human-centered AI projects. So I took a few courses from a professor, Dr. Ranjan Nag, who's sort of a famous entrepreneur and AI investor. And in the class, first of all, we saw an early demo of GPT-3, which was the original light bulb going off moment in
You're
terms
like,
of
wow, it can do this now. It's
it can
like,
speak English. Robots can speak English.
yeah.
And at the time, it wasn't a chatbot, so you'd have to type a sentence and finish it. And so when I got my chance to try it, I wrote, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And I was thinking, is it going to copy Dickens or is it going to invent its own? And it did. It invented in seconds this beautiful, poetic short story.
Wow.
Um, but the more I tested it, the hallucinations were there. You try to write a story, it forgets the main character, it invents a new one. So I was talking to my brother. We grew up together as kids making movies. And he now works, he went to computer engineering, but same thing. He's like, I don't want to work a cubicle 9 to 5. He went back to film school and majored in creative writing. And so he works, a lot of movies are filmed in Toronto and Vancouver. So he worked on like the show Suits, the show The Boys, Superman and Lois, some DC movies. And so he's telling me like, well, here you need to put structure around this thing. Like what I learned in film school is here's how character arcs work. Here's how what should be in act one, two, three. Um, and so, the professor said, write a paper on AI disrupting an industry. So I wrote it with my brother on Hollywood. And we tried to say, here's all the jobs that, may transition to new things or be at risk. Like if you make puppets or models or costumes. Or if you're a writer, maybe it can scan in. That's what I did. The API came out and I built a prototype for my brother. I scanned in all the novels and scripts he's ever written, and I tried to make him a writing assistant.
Wow.
Um, and he would take it on set and be working on it on his lunch break. And again, this was years before the strike or chat GPT. People weren't afraid of AI. So they would come over and say, "Oh, I've had this idea in my head for years. I'm a stunt coordinator, but I took classes during the pandemic on creative writing. I want to be a screenwriter. That's my dream." Type in my idea in the log line and see what
Yeah.
characters and people were just blown away. And so we said, "Okay, maybe this maybe this
Maybe
might
there's something
work."
here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So to just the final step was another. I try to look for the silver lining in clouds. Another benefit coming out for us of the pandemic was Y Combinator, the famous startup accelerator, put their batch program online and called it Startup School. It's really hard to get in, but this is free and anyone could do it. So I was just, before quitting my job, we just tested it. They make you interview 10 potential customers a week. Um, and so we would go on set and interview 10 people. And then they would say, "Oh,
Right.
my friend's got to see this, 10 more." And, we must have interviewed dozens, but by now, 100
So
people.
you were doing customer discovery and quickly getting
Exactly.
feedback from potential
Exactly.
users. And overall, what was the feedback you were getting?
It
They
was
just
it
loved
was
it.
great. It was great. People loved it. The big question was, is this my idea? Can I keep it? And that's what led to, we can maybe talk about this later in terms of ethics and legality, but this is what our led to our decision. I built this for my brother, not to steal his idea.
Yeah.
So our policy is, unlike some of our competitors, if you make it, it's yours. You own it 100%. We only use APIs and models that grant the same, um, and don't retrain on your work. And so that was great. And a couple years later, the strikes happened, and that's what they fought for and won. And we were happy to say, I was talking to someone from the WGA, the Writers Guild's AI committee, and we said, "Great, we love that you chose this. This was our policy all along." And he's like,
Yeah,
"Okay,
let's talk about that a little bit.
yeah,
So you create this incredible product, then a
mhm,
strike occurs, and one of the major issues of the strike was just AI in general. Here
mhm,
you guys are in center stage
yeah,
of the actual what the strike is all about, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
kind of tell me a little bit about that and what where was your positioning and how was it received overall and how were you guys able to show in general that you guys are here to, I guess we talked about this a little bit earlier, to
yeah,
be more of a writing assistant and more give writers the creative edge or
yeah,
helping them
yeah.
create better products, right? If I'm
Yeah.
understanding it correctly.
Yeah, it's absolutely meant to help them. So again, my brother working in Hollywood for 15 years, he founded his own production company where he writes novels and publishes them on Amazon, and he writes scripts. It's so hard, especially if you're not in LA, to break in. So he was the guy after every movie wraps, he'd go to the executive producer, "Hey, I did some good work for you. How about could you read my screenplay, give me some feedback?" No one ever helps, especially if it's your first one. And he had a lot of trouble converting his novel to a screenplay, which a lot of people struggle with. He ended up hiring what most people do, which is, a ghostwriter, a co-writer, a script doctor, depending on the project. It costs tens of thousands of dollars. Our app is $20 a month. So the first thought was, okay, that's one thing we can say. Like, people in Hollywood do this already. You're just replacing the human you pay with an AI. Um, but yeah, it was interesting. We launched the month before the strike started. And so, we got some feedback. Maybe just keep your head down for a couple months and build some new features. And we did. We built our script editor and our storyboarding. app. But yeah, I mean, leading up to the strike, my brother is in the guilds in Canada, the WGC, the Writers Guild of Canada, Directors Guild, Producers Guild. So we were tracking it. And I can honestly say, in the months leading up to the strike, AI was last on the list.
Right.
And number one was streaming residuals. So to summarize that, Seinfeld, they got paid $1 million an episode by the end. And then also the show's been running for 20 years. They continue to get paid residuals for those reruns. When Netflix started and streaming and no one thought it was going to be as big as it was, Blockbuster turned them down for an acquisition. Um, yeah, it was just really interesting to see that once the strike started, the studios who were pushing back started releasing numbers. We're trying to compete with Netflix now, and we're losing $1 billion a year on Disney Plus,
Right.
and we're having to lay off people. And so I think the story was just bad. Like, give us more money from your division that is losing money and you're laying off staff. Like, it probably didn't sound good on the picket line and their storytellers. ChatGPT just came out, and so I think maybe it was David Zaslav of Warner Brothers, or someone made a threat saying, "Oh, ChatGPT's here. If you don't like the offer, I'll just fire you and replace you with a robot." And I think that's what turned up the heat on AI
Right.
and it's a great story. We're creators, and we're going to save the arts from these robots. So we kept our head down. Once the strike ended and ruled in our favor in fall, we had rebranded to Saga and relaunched, and things took off. And one last funny story, well, maybe not so funny, it was a little scary. I had pitched, because we launched, I had pitched Jason Calacanis. He hosts the All In podcast. He wrote the book on angel investing. He was the first angel in Uber. And he invited me on, and I did a pitch competition live on his podcast in front of millions of people. And he loved it. And, oh, great product, great everything. I'm going to give you the same offer I gave Uber, but I hate the name CyberFilm AI. You got to rebrand. He's like, I'm the guy who told Uber to change it from Uber Cab, like the famous social network line, just Uber. It's cleaner, right?
Right.
So we were looking for, a four-letter, sort of two-syllable name that he recommended. Looks good on a T-shirt. Looks good. People remember it, and it sounds cool, and it represents what you're doing. The bad part of it was, the next day he went on the All In podcast, which is listened to by millions, maybe tens of millions of people, and mentioned to, the besties, Chamath and David Sachs. Hey, I met this. He didn't name us because I hadn't signed yet, but I met these guys. There's two brothers, one's a Hollywood filmmaker, one's a Silicon Valley AI product manager. This is great. And David Sachs mentioned, well, there's a strike about to
Happening.
happen. They should not give studios a reason to look for alternatives. And this just, I guess, went viral in the Hollywood community, because the next day I got two things. One was nice, which was all my old friends, cousins, colleagues, high school buddies who all listened. Oh, was that you on the podcast? Oh, they shouted you out. Great. On the other hand, our Twitter just started immediately getting death threats, to be
Oh, wow.
perfectly honest. Yep. A lot of hate, a lot of anger, calling us a scab. And so it was tough, but a lot of people reached out, some famous A-list producers, and would say, I heard about this. I want to talk to you and see a demo, but I just want to let you know, I hate this. I hate everything about you. And I hope your demo sucks. And I just want to confirm that AI is not good. I tried ChatGPT. It's cliche. It's bad at writing. It hallucinates. And one of my proudest moments as a founder was, flipping that person and people like him to say, okay, I see the vision. I see what you're building. It's a tool. Everybody uses script doctors, script writers, co-writers. It's just with an AI. And in fact, I like it because sometimes those people sue me. They want, more of a writing credit, more of a percentage. This AI is not going to take any of my ideas. And I can, it never gets tired. It never runs out of ideas. I can just keep clicking, give me a better name for my movie and to infinity until you see one you like. And they always find one they like. So ups and
Amazing.
downs, but we're in a better
So,
place
so how many
now.
users are using Saga now? How many users do you guys have on the platform?
We're not really releasing exact numbers at the time, but it's in the multiple thousands, and $20 a month, so pretty affordable. But yeah, not quite. It's been a couple of years, but we're still pretty early stage, and we want to do better. So yeah, our growth is, our target is, we've calculated there's about 450,000 people. If you look at all the people who are storytellers and work in media. So not only professional writers, but novelists, screenwriters, all types of writers, game developers love it. So they like working on the game mechanics, but not the
The,
character names and dialogue and the cutscenes and the plot. And even commercial advertisers are, one of our biggest requests is, can you build a new template so I can just pump out like a 30-second ad? Even a 30-second ad has three acts. They're just 10 seconds each. It has a character that alludes to a backstory. Jake from State Farm, we kind of know about him and his personality, and there's dialogue. And eventually, with tools like Sora now and Google's VO2, you can generate 60 seconds of photorealistic, lifelike quality. So we're hoping to integrate those soon. And so I think people are a lot more receptive, and especially now that we see, Ridley Scott used AI for the Rhino in Gladiator 2. No one's going to blacklist him or give him a death threat. Um, Paul Schrader, who wrote Scorsese's Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, just posted, I tried AI and it gives me better script notes than any executive in my 30-year career. Tom Hanks, Robin Wright used the metaphysic AI to de-age themselves in the movie here. So more people are starting to use it. Everyone I talk to says, even if they're hating on it in public, they're using it in the background. And Hollywood is very competitive. It's a war. It's a war out there, and people will use whatever tools and weapons they can to succeed because most people do not succeed. And it's not always a meritocracy. Sometimes it's just you don't have even if you move to LA, you don't have the right connections. Handing out your screenplay in coffee shops doesn't work. And
right.
so, yeah, we're hoping this is not going to replace jobs, but just really help people. We put their name on it. They don't even have to say they use our app. We just want to see people like my brother, who spent 15 years trying to break into a director. He's an assistant director, but
So can we go a little bit deeper into the product? So what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
understanding so far is it's a tool that
Hmm.
can help streamline and help you either come up with, help you with the idea creation part, help you
Hmm.
with the note-taking part, help you
Hmm.
refine your script. It's not writing it for you per se.
No.
It's more guiding you and making sure you're following all of the best
It's
practice.
helping. It's helping. Yeah, and in fact, I had a lot of students from USC School of Cinematic Arts. Top school in the world, possibly Toronto Film School, where we're from, best in Canada. And it's some professors and students say it's like a teaching school. Like I have not yet read the incredibly long Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. Maybe I read Save the Cat, but I haven't got to Robert McKee's story or Sid Field's screenplay. You have to read a lot. All the books my brother made me read when we started, there's a lot to get through and a lot to remember. And
Right.
especially if it's your first movie, maybe you can read about something, but it's better to learn by doing. And so our app, and people can see it on right on saga.com, slash demos if you want to see a video of it in action or some screenshots. Writing is in, WRITE. Um, and my brother said, when I did film school and creative writing, there would be a week on plot. and a week on characters, and then acts and how to structure a beat sheet. You need to plan this all before you even start writing your script. People do it today. They write on little cue cards, they put them on a cork board, and then they'll have to like snap a picture to send it to people. And it's just, Final Draft was invented in 1990. It hasn't really changed since then. We kind of think this stuff needs to move to the web, to the cloud, and take advantage of this tech. But yeah, so our app, the pages from left to right are plot, start here, then characters, then acts, then beats, then scripts, then storyboards, then video. You can go in any order you want, and because everybody has a different process. But yeah, the idea is most of our writers, and we do track this data and do sort of interviews and user surveys. Most people end up filling in like 60, 70, 80% of, because it's not an idea generator. When we did the Y Combinator interviews, people said, I don't want an idea generator. I don't want something to make a 100-page script for me based on whatever it thinks is good.
Right.
I have 6 or 7 ideas. I've been tumbling them around in my head for years. People say sometimes years they've been trying to get a. So we say, okay, just start. Type in the log line. You don't know the title yet, that's fine. You know the main character and their backstory. Okay, type in their ghost that haunts them from the past, that makes them believe a lie. And in Act One, there's something they want, but really by Act Three, if they have a positive character arc, they will learn something and get what they need, and that's a happy ending. So some students will say, "Oh, I didn't know my
It sounds like the structure and the workflow is a similar process you would be going through anyways.
yes,
And where your Saga really steps in is it is allowing you to no longer worry about the blank screen or getting
yes,
stuck, and it just kind
yes,
of triggers some new suggestions based
exactly,
off of best in class. And then from there, it's not the best answer per se, but it gives you, okay, yeah, no, I don't mean this, but I mean that. And then
exactly,
the collaboration begins, right? So
yeah,
it's more of a writing collaborator or a co-writer per se. Is
exactly,
that a
yeah.
better way of describing it?
Yeah, yeah. And that's so when you start our app, it's not type a sentence and we'll make a movie for you like our one of our competitors. They came out soon after us. Their app looks similar, but their whole thing is type a sentence and we'll give you a 10-minute movie. No one wants that.
Yeah.
Ours doesn't prompt you to, it encourages you to start writing and filling in as much as you can. And then if you say, okay, I know this character, just take an example everyone knows. His name is Bruce Wayne, and but I don't really know his backstory yet. But I know he's this type of person, and this is what he wants, and so you can click, okay, what is the ghost? And it might say, a criminal murdered his parents when he was growing up. And then maybe you go to the villain page and you say, okay, come up with a name. And it could pop out something like Joker and say, oh, Joker was the one that killed him. And here's Joker's deal and backstory, which, we saw in the wonderful new movie Joker. And so the idea is, if you know the character, but not the love interest or villain or mentor like a Gandalf, um, we can help you think of things to complement. So whenever you click generate, even if it's like just what's this character's name, we fill in because we use GPT-4 Turbo. It has like I think 165K context window, which is equivalent to, you can send it a prompt with like 500 novels of text worth of text. So we
Wow.
we send everything. So if you've written 10 pages of script, half the characters, two of the acts, some of this, some of that, and then you say, okay, what happens in beat 40, the epilogue? We take everything. And it's turbo now, so it's so fast. So in seconds, it will say, here's 5 ideas for this thing you're asking for based on your movie. And so to your point, you can click on it and say, okay, you almost nailed it, but I'm going to edit it a little bit, and then continue on. So yeah, it doesn't write it for you. It's not this, people on the picket lines, they were worried that David
So is
Zest,
your brother happy? How many successful
yeah,
stories have you been able to get out? That's
quite a
been
few. Quite a few. So we did actually, I just wrote a paper for IEEE Computer Magazine. It's coming out in April, and we had to do a case study. So we used my brother's, and we sort of did the average of all the 100-page screenplays he's done previous to AI. And the average was it would take him 2 years because, he works a day job. He's not
Right.
paid as a writer yet, so he's trying to do it evenings, weekends. That's why it's so slow. One took 7 years, which was wild. But then he asks someone, I think at his studio or one of his colleagues or his agent or someone, like, just give me a premise. And so he typed the premise in the log line, clicked generate, it expanded it out, professional log line. He worked through it, again, part-time, and got all the plot, characters, acts, everything, the script, and even some of the storyboards completely finished in 10 days.
Wow.
Um, and
So
sent
from
it
se- so from couple years to
two
10
two to
days.
years, yeah, to 10 days. And when he sent it to people, because we wanted to do like a blind test to, his friends, family, everyone he usually shares his work with, a lot of them said this is by far your best work. So it's
Wow.
not just about speed, it's also about quality. And in fact, in the interviews, writers say, because we had to make decisions. Do we use GPT Turbo? It's faster, more expensive. Or do we use this model? What does speed matter to people? And everyone said the same thing. Like, this idea, if it's in a movie, could last forever. It's in my portfolio forever. People may still be watching it in 20 years. I want the best idea. I don't care if it takes 2 seconds longer to generate
Right.
it. But yeah, so the case study was great. It wasn't a scientific study. Maybe someone else will do such a thing. Um, but yeah, we're having a lot of people now from Hollywood reach out. They've heard about us. We started our blog in 2021 to call back to our earlier point. Here's all the things we think will go well and go wrong, deep fake of
Right.
politicians,
Let's talk a
deep.
little bit about that, like
Sure.
ethics, right? So
Yeah.
it's a hot conversation here, and I think the Copyright Office just recently ruled on this as
Yep.
well too.
Yep.
So what do you foresee as AI becomes and it continues at the speed that it's getting integrated into
Mhm.
everything, not just Hollywood, from every product,
Yep.
from marketing
Yep.
to, filmmaking to you kind of name it. And I don't think there's an industry that hasn't been affected by it at this point.
No.
What do you see some of the
Law, medicine,
law,
everything.
medicine, you name it? So what's your take on the whole ethical challenges here and what's your viewpoint on this as well too?
Yeah. I have a slightly different take, and I want to just start by saying, like, these companies, I think OpenAI and Stability AI, companies like this, they have built the best products I've ever seen in my life. They have the best teams. I look up to them. I wanted to work for them at one point. I was considering applying. But yeah, I mean, no company's perfect. Everything moves fast, and there have been missteps. So maybe I'll mention a few. But I do believe that, the too long didn't read it TLDR answer is generative AI is ethical when used as a tool in the hands of human creators to make more of their best work faster. I don't want that scenario the strikes mentioned, which is, well, Zaslav's just gonna get his own version of of ChatGPT and Sora trained on all of Warner Brothers videos, and he probably thinks he's super smart and has ideas, so he'll just fire everyone and just a one person now billionaire, movie maker. That's not what we want. It was built for people, my brother's my co-founder because we wanted a Hollywood filmmaker in our DNA to make the right decisions. We give our users 100% ownership of everything they make in our app. That was our decision in 2021, and the outcome of the writer's strike that they fought hard for was writers can use AI, can't be forced to, but if they do, only they own the credit, not OpenAI or what, name whatever app they use. So I think we got ahead of that, and that was important. As you mentioned, the Copyright Office just this week ruled that Basically there was always a clause in copyright which said if you even arrange something in a new way, um, you can copyright it. And so the big case study precedent ruling was, someone said, okay, I wrote a very good prompt in Midjourney. Can I copyright that? No. And that's still the true. Can I copy the one image it made for me? No, not really. You didn't really, you didn't put enough work in. But and someone did this. I believe that it was called Daria of the Night. It was this graphic novel. Someone spent, 1,000 hours and trying 20 different tools, generating tens of thousands of images possibly to find all the perfect ones to arrange in a comic book. They wrote all the narrative. That was always able to be copywritten. And now it's, official in the law that, putting in enough human work, even if you use an AI tool, you can copyright. So I think ethically that makes sense. On the other hand, and I think this is where we're different than other companies, and why I mentioned OpenAI and Stability AI, I very much respect them. They built two of the first image generators. And, the internet, the way it works, the World Wide Web, is you go to a website and the server serves you the images. So literally you are downloading images, and that is fair use. And if they inspire you to make something, you can do that. But there was an example where Stability AI, they used this Lion 5B data set. It had all, every picture on the internet, including from Getty Images website. And Getty copyright means you have the right to copy if I allow you, and in this case, if you pay me, and here's a watermark to make sure you can't until you do. And so they use these watermarked images anyways, and Stability AI, Stable Diffusion, started pumping out images with pseudo Getty watermarks in the side because it thought that's what makes for good images. And we didn't like that. So we said, we're not going to integrate Stability AI's image generator until they change their ways. OpenAI for DALL-E 3 took a different approach. They were lucky to get $10 billion investment from Microsoft. So they said, we'll just buy every image Getty has. And all
Right.
those artists, that's a new income stream for them. They made a lot of money. And so we thought that was better. But where I think things can still change, even with this copyright ruling, is I just believe if you make anything and put it on the internet and someone will scan it and use it to give other people similar ideas, the strike wanted three C's: consent. You got to ask me first. So not opt out. I don't want to have to put a no robots tag on all my, you know, I want to opt in if I choose to. And I want the second C, control. If I decide I don't like your company anymore, I want to be able to take that out of the database. And the third is compensation. You have $10 billion. You're making, ChatGPT is the fastest growing, most successful, hugely profitable product in the world, and you can't pay some people for their images. You already paid Getty. Why not us? And so, it made me think when we built our app, I did not want, I made a clause that says you can enter because we were talking to NBC at the time, and they were like, if I type in an idea for the next season of, Law and Order or whatever it is, are you going to retrain on it? And before I can even film it, someone else is collecting this. So we said, we won't train on our customers' work. But it occurred to me that's a bit hypocritical, because while we're giving this option to our users, OpenAI and all these other AI companies did not give them the option, and we're using them. So the ethical decision is tough, and I write a lot about it on my blog. People can check it out on Medium or link from our website on the blog page. And so we tried to propose ideas. So I'll just end on this. Um, Goldman, McKinsey, all these analyst firms are saying generative AI alone will add the range was 10 to 20 trillion dollars over the next 10 years to the global, economy and GDP. Can we maybe reroute and pipe some of that back to the people whose work was used to enable these things to be built? And people, well, it's impossible. How are you going to pay everyone in the world? And so we're thinking, hey, maybe uh, Stable Diffusion is open source. It's just their weights, but I think there's some code for the image generation portion. Maybe we can swap out this troublesome data set, and we have a new product, and it's a data set where people can say, you know, I've been submitting, I've got thousands of pictures, tens of thousands. I submit them to Getty. I get paid $10 a month. Like I need a new income stream. I will opt in and say, okay, these are my images. I can prove them. I've submitted copyright registration. Maybe we use a blockchain.
Right.
And so it's public. And so we can track and everyone can know whose picture's who. And, you can always look up a picture. Oh, no, that's mine. There's a dispute. Okay. Maybe.
Interesting. So you think we're going to get into a world where ownership of digital assets is going to become much more clearly defined,
I hope
maybe
so.
the utility of the blockchain, and then also what you created versus what AI created. There might be some way of differentiation. Am I hearing that correctly,
Well,
or this
yeah,
was
yeah,
AI
yeah.
assisted, this was
This
100% human, this
the
was
the
all
idea would be, yeah, we don't want synthetic data because that's my biggest fear is humans will go, okay, copyright office ruled. I'm giving up on photography and I'm never going to do art again. And the
right,
AI companies now what they do is synthetic data. I don't want to drive a car
right,
for a million hours to teach it to drive, so we create synthetic, game engine world maps. So if all the human artists in the world gave up and it was only synthetic data training these sets, I think we'd hit sort of a local maximum, to use a machine learning term, and where the arts will go. So we want people to keep creating work. The copyright, the founding fathers said in the Constitution, this is to incentivize people to continue creating. And so if they continue creating images, in this case, in photography and paintings, whatever, putting it in our thing, they're allowed to take it out if they want. And then let's say we put, the open source image generator on top and we say, okay, this is now a fair trade image generator. It's like Starbucks coffee beans. They say, these cost $2 more per bag, but
right.
here's the story of the farmer and they're not mistreated and it. So it's like maybe Hollywood would use the power of the guilds to say, okay, team, we're going to boycott these ones and we're going to use this one because everyone who pays to use this, the company gives 20% of their revenue to pay out dividends to every single person on that blockchain contract. And it's possible through something called Solana, which is basically a digital contract. So you don't have to write 10 trillion contracts.
Right.
It's just done automatically. So this is one example of a product where we are not, no, it's fair use to do AI, copyright ruled in our favor, but we still think it's in the best interest to build this product. um, Big tech's not going to do it because it's not going to make them rich. So why not an artist-friendly AI company like us?
I love it. So Russell, honestly, it's been incredible hearing your journey and
Yeah, thank you.
from where you were to the inception of CyberFilm AI and now Saga and shaping the future of storytelling.
Yeah,
As we wrap up, I'd love for you to share one final piece of advice for
yeah,
creators or filmmakers navigating the rapidly evolving AI-driven world.
yeah,
What's the mindset or key takeaway they should embrace as they thrive, as this technology reshapes the industry? What do you think would enable them to be successful?
yeah. I think honestly, big tech, and I work in Silicon Valley, it sort of lost the world's trust in recent years. Scandals like FTX and Theranos, and the promise of crypto. Some people made money, a lot of people lost money, and it didn't really live up to the hype. And now, this is the next one. And when generative AI came out, people were saying, oh, this is just the next scam. And a lot of people refused to even try it and or listen to people, or if anything's posted on Reddit or Twitter, you get brigaded by just hate and death threats. I would say take a step back, have a little faith in America. Or I'm from Canada originally, dual citizen now, but have a faith in maybe at least the Western countries. There's some adversarial countries I wouldn't call out by name, but they're going to do whatever it takes. This stuff is not going anywhere. Stop screaming about it and letting it live in your head rent free, and just give it a try. And have faith that while some rulings may not go in your favor and someone can make a movie with the help of AI, it will compete with your movie. But art is a market. The best movie should win no matter what tools are made. You're a human. So step it up, learn from these tools, get better. And like, the Lee Sedol was the Go champion. He played and lost to AlphaGo. He said it helped him become a better player. He thinks about the game differently. Um, Hollywood movies are stuck in a rut. Everything I watch on Netflix, I predict lines. I know how it's going to end. Obviously, the superhero is going to win the love interest and defeat the villain, and it's the same 15 story archetypes since the ancient Greeks. Like, maybe AI can be the thing that gives all us a kick in the butt and says, stop remaking the Dances with Wolves into Avatar, and Romeo and Juliet in different formats, and imagine movies like Memento that are just weird and trippy, and Pulp Fiction, that it goes out of order. No one's done that before. Like, help it think, help you break out of the box. You don't have to tell people you used AI. So until it's more accepted, yeah, keep your head down. Don't make yourself a target, but try it, see if it helps you, and have faith that the bad stuff, like deep fakes, you can't deep fake your CEO's voice and call the CTO and say, transfer all the money to my bank. It's illegal to robocall during an election with the voice of Joe Biden. Like, people are catching up on this stuff. Laws will pass to protect you. I just wouldn't ignore it. And especially, if you have kids and they want to get into filmmaking, restricting them from learning AI would be a big detriment to them. Every college student we talk to says, I use ChatGPT 10 times a day. It helps me with my resume, my cover letter, outline my essay. Don't let it do the work for you. You still need to learn. That's why you're paying the $80,000 a year to go to school. Still
Right.
go to film school, be an actor, but use it as a tool where you can. And if you're against AI, you can be proud and continue. You don't have to use AI. Keep using it, but like, you just maybe don't feel the need to like boycott and attack movies and send death threats, because people are just creating movies and doing the best they can. And I think it's going to help more people break into Hollywood instead of people in the past. They had to move to LA, never made it, never met the right people, weren't good looking enough, end up as a waiter, waitress, give up on their dream. I really think this is going to grow the pie, grow jobs, give us all more great movies to watch. And the next generation is going to do it anyway. So, don't be the puppeteer or model builders, who helped on Star Wars, and then when James Cameron and Spielberg were using CGI for The Abyss and Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park, there was a big outrage. And like the
Right.
Luddites, they were like, we're going to try to ruin you and destroy you. And you're just even the guilds won't be able to make it happen, because people will just go make movies in Canada and the UK. Huge film markets. Nigeria, Nollywood, huge film market. Bollywood, China wants to get into it, and they are building incredible AI models. So yeah, it's just try to keep optimistic, have some encouragement, and keep making great movies, because we believe humans will always have a place in filmmaking.
Perfect. I love that. If the listening audience wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Yeah, if you go to our website, writeonsaga.com. There's links to please follow our Twitter. We have a lot of demo videos on YouTube. All our handles are at Write on Twitter, or you can email me at russellp@cyberfilm.ai, and Russell has two S's and two L's in it.
Perfect. Well, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Eight Growth Ventures podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation and want to hear more from visionary leaders like Russell Palmer, be sure to subscribe to the podcast at your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave us a review and share this episode with fellow growth leaders and creators. Stay tuned for more insights and with the intersection of growth, innovation, and creativity. See you next time.